Hello, welcome everyone to today's session on automating the bank experience, the next wave in customer service. We are going to go through the slides in the beginning real quick, so bear with me. We've only got 30 minutes, so lots to cover in that 30 minutes. Real quick, a meeting of minds agenda. So first we're going to meet the minds. I'm going to throw up two quick polls just so we can get to know our audience a little bit better. We'll dive into some good conversation topics, and then we'll end with giving you guys a 10-step action plan, as well as talking about some next steps to help you get started. So let's meet the minds. We've got Gary Velotta. He's a director at Roth Automation. He has over 20 years experience helping banks and financial institutions achieve digital transformation by implementing digital mortgage, new account opening, digital mailroom, and wealth management. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Jessica, and thank you all for joining today. We appreciate it.
And we've got Derek Roberti. He's VP of Technology at Cognigy. He's recognized by Gartner as a digital experience leader. Derek is a technical and customer-facing strategist leading customer service teams in conversational AI automation excellence. So hello, Derek.
Hello.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, so thank you for those poll questions. We're going to move on to the first question here. How is the current market exacerbating long-standing challenges in the contact center? Derek, can I throw this your way to kind of kick things off?
Sure thing, and thank you, Jessica and Gary, and thanks everybody for joining today. And when I think about this question, I think about kind of what are the long-standing challenges that we've kind of lived with for years in the contact center world. First and foremost is a people challenge, which is that high attrition means there's a continuous need for hiring and training, and that's kind of part of the life of the contact center, is constantly kind of getting in new blood to be able to handle those customer interactions. When you do have agents doing their work, we often lack the right tools for agents to have productive conversations. So they have to move from window to window and screen to screen in order to access CRM or ERP or ticketing systems or whatever applications they need to be able to provide customer service. As managers, we have an ongoing need to monitor quality, to coach employees, to develop them. And that requires a lot of that hands-on one-to-one engagement between managers and employees. On the customer side, we often lack self-service options, which means that human agents are spending a lot of time answering questions that don't really need human judgment or human decision-making. And as we get more increased requests, as has happened, big impact from COVID for many contact centers, the only way that we can scale the contact center is through hiring. And the more people we hire, the more all of these challenges get compounded. And these are kind of they're age-old problems in the contact center. COVID and its aftermath are impacting these dynamics in different ways. That often makes the already hard things a little bit more difficult. And some changes that we're seeing that we're kind of having to face in the contact center is that in recruiting, we have to think about which candidates are going to thrive in a less supervised and less structured work from home environment. And even though many contact centers are going to reopen physical offices, there's still going to be a significant number of employees who need the organization skills, focus, and self-sufficiency to work from home effectively. So onboarding, training, supervising, and motivating employees who work from home has been a challenge we faced during COVID, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be going away. Yeah. Another factor that happened, just kind of one more comment during COVID, is that we faced two challenging changes. One is call volume significantly increased for most contact centers. Not some of them had probably significant decreases as well. For some businesses, this was kind of just an incremental change, but for others, they saw 2 or 3x their normal call volume or contact volume. Second is that many contact centers saw a decrease in agent capacity. And there isn't one reason for this, but it's seen as a combination of agents having to master new tools as they're in the work from home environment. And also there's an increased complexity of customer needs due to the unique conditions of the pandemic. And we don't know if these are going to be long-term trends or how this is going to actually play out in the coming months, but we shall see. And as we emerge from the pandemic, the businesses that we're a part of are going to respond differently. Some businesses might permanently reduce their number of retail locations, for example, as consumers opt for more e-commerce options. And in this sense, the contact centers are going to become even more important than ever as a primary avenue for consumers to connect with businesses because there aren't as many physical locations. Some businesses might see a strong return to profitability, and maybe you're already seeing that. That means they're going to need to do more hiring, and they'll need to think about what is your hiring strategy in the post-COVID job market. So in terms of what does the current and evolving market look like and how is it impacting our lives, there's a lot of unknowns, but we know that some of those traditional challenges are still going to be with us.
All right, fantastic. That's a great way to get the conversation going. Thanks, Derek. For our next topic, we have, in what ways is consumer behavior changing that is forcing banks to adapt? Gary, can I throw this over to you to start?
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. So I think we can really go back pretty far in terms of how communication has changed. We won't go back too far, but if you look at communication, look at the 1800s, actually typewriters, radios, early phones back in the 1800s, TVs in the early 1900s. But in the last 30, 40 years, it's really exponentially changed. Where, you can debate when the internet actually became prominent, but in the 70s and 80s, the internet came, mobile phones came. And then in the 80s, real automation started with optical character recognition. And that's when really the digitization has changed. And that's when consumer behavior has changed. Because now consumers are looking for results quickly. Since OCR in the 1980s, in the last 20, 30 years or so, you now have terms that really are just everywhere. You have artificial intelligence. A new term is now called hyper-automation. What is that? Hyper-automation is a category that has sub-intelligence process automation tools. There's machine learning, there's deep learning, there's robotic process automation, and of course there is conversational AI, where you can communicate on a multi-channel level. And that's what consumers want, and that's the change. Consumers want things to be done very, very quickly. And if you don't respond to your customers very quickly, the abandonment rates are going to change, and they're going to move on to another competitor. So as we'll talk today a little bit more in the time we have, organizations need to adopt this automation in order to stay competitive, gain market share. So we've been seeing this uptick in the last 20, 30 years, especially in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and I add to that part of that evolution is that we as consumers and also as employees live in multi-channel experiences as we interact with businesses, with our colleagues and friends and family. We communicate on a diverse range of channels, from our web browsers to email to SMS, and then apps like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. At work, we use unified communication solutions to talk with each other, also things like Slack and Teams. So there's a wide variety of communication platforms that we use in any given day. And as we interact with businesses on these channels, we expect businesses to not only be available there, but to remember who we are and what we've been talking about, regardless of what entry point that we're using at this particular moment. So if I do a live chat with an agent through a web interface, I expect to have continuity in my conversation if I decide to call in or email, or if I'm starting the conversation on Apple Business Chat or WhatsApp. I assume that the agent I'm talking to is going to have the same context as the agent I interact with on the phone. And I also assume that any inquiry I have should be solvable within my channel of choice in the moment. So I shouldn't have to call in or move to another channel or move to email to be able to solve a problem. The other consumer expectation that continuously intensifies, that Gary was mentioning as well, is the expectation of instant availability and instant answers. 24/7 availability for customer support is really an assumption that consumers bring to most interactions that they have with businesses. We just don't always have time during business hours to take care of what's going on in our lives, and we need businesses to be available at 9 o'clock at night or on a Saturday morning or whenever it is that we need to get something done. So it's definitely a long evolution, but certainly an intensifying evolution in how consumers assume that they can interact with us as businesses.
All right, fantastic. Let's move on to the next topic here, which is a look at how are the changes we just talked about impacting how banks are operating, and the bigger picture, how does it affect the customer experience as a whole?
Yeah, so if you think about kind of what we've talked about so far, one is some of the human labor related and human management related challenges that we face in the contact center. You combine that with some of the heightened consumer expectations around how they interact with businesses. There's a lot of challenges there that can be aided through automation. So businesses are looking at what are different ways that we can bring automation to the contact center and to our customer service processes. So this means automating the back and forth for both electronic and document-centric processes, and then providing a customer-facing interface to these processes. So if a customer has completed a loan application, for example, they should be able to start the process online and then get status updates and information requests through their channel of choice. Traditionally, this is either done just by calling in over and over again or sending emails back and forth with whoever's helping you out with a loan. That just results in unnecessary manual effort that creates delays in responding to customers. So what automating this experience could look like is that when you automate conversations, customers can communicate through text or voice channels and interact with chatbots or voice bots using just natural language, so they can express themselves in their own terms and get answers to the questions they want without having to navigate hierarchical menus in your IVR system or finding the right last email that was sent to you. And customers, instead of immediately just pressing 0 to get to an operator, they can just ask for what they want and get assistance with what they need immediately without waiting on hold. And in text-based channels, customers maybe receive a notification, let's say over SMS, about your application status. But what if you could also respond in that same channel? So no longer in the world of one-way notifications, but really dialogues with customers on whatever channel that you're communicating with them on. These automated interactions have the joint benefit of freeing up time for your agents, so they don't have to spend a lot of time just on basic status updates or requests for information. And it creates better experiences for customers because you're able to provide fast service 24 hours a day.
All right, fantastic. You bring up some really excellent points there, Derek. For the next question, before we get to it, I wanted to meet the technology. So we've got two here, and we don't want to dive in too deep, but we want to give like a 60-second overview, just so it prefaces what we're going to talk about next. So Gary, would you like to just talk a little bit about intelligent process automation?
Sure. And, it's a term, right? And I'll tell you, if I was at a bank or a financial institution today, you're probably bombarded from providers and literature with all these terms: intelligent process automation, hyper automation, artificial intelligence, all these new terms, right? So some of the new terms are hyper automation, and I touched on that briefly before. It's really a combination, and there's subsets of hyper automation. OCR is really the base where this all started in the 1980s. But now with machine learning, now with deep learning, now with robotic process automation, Now we're conversational AI. And now with all the analytics that go into it, you could reach a point at a bank where you kind of throw up your hands and say, I don't know what all this means, right? So what we've learned over the years are a few things. One is when we talk to financial institutions, and a lot of times they say to us, well, we really don't want to look at artificial intelligence because we're really afraid that it's going to impact our jobs. And I think the answer to that is twofold. One is it does not. It's artificial intelligence or hyper automation is really a augmentation of your staff. You know, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're a bank and someone wants to open up a checking account and they want to do it online through a chat or using conversational AI, and there are no agents available, you want to be able to service that particular person who wants to open up that account. So there's an example of where these technologies are really working with and augmenting the human. The other thing that we see also with these technologies is they're really geared to working on repetitive tasks that are just repetitive and don't add a lot of value to the process. So Derek mentioned before the lending process. So in the lending process, you have a lot of tasks that are just repetitive. And why not let RPA or machine learning or OCR or conversational AI handle those repetitive tasks, and then the knowledge tasks at the knowledge worker should be handled by the professional. So what we've been seeing now lately is the blending of these technologies with the human to offer a better experience for your customer. So again, you can provide service to your customers quickly, and they don't jump from bank to bank. So that's a whole other conversation that we can have over time. But that's what we're beginning to see, where it's an augmentation, it is not a replacement, and it handles all the repetitive tasks and lets the processor and the underwriter do the value-added work that the customer expects.
Yeah, only thing I would add to that, just to
Yeah.
recap conversational AI is, as Gary was saying, it really connects people to the systems and data they need to access through that natural language interface. And historically, a lot of these automation technologies have really been back office technologies used to help with things like month-end close or automating activities that happen in spreadsheets or on file shares. But what's happening now is a lot of this automation technology is being brought into the contact center to provide faster customer service and automate actually both the human-to-human interactions to make life easier for the agent so they can accomplish more with less typing and clicking and moving from screen to screen in application, and also to be a component of these fully automated interactions where a customer can call in, have a full end-to-end problem solved, a process completed, without needing to involve a human agent.
Right. Right.
All right, fantastic. Really good way to set up the next one, which is really talking about the use cases where intelligent process automation and conversational AI really make the most impact.
Right, so I'll take that, Jessica. So what we have found in the last few years is a lot of commonality on the use cases that are being deployed at banks and financial institutions. And I think what I tend to talk, when I talk to clients about the deployment of these technologies, I tell them that at this point, don't worry too much about the technologies. Let's not look at the technology first and then the use case second. Let's look at your use case and what your goals and objectives are with the use case and what you wanted to achieve. So what we have seen in the last few years are obviously organizations trying to automate the call center and the contact center. And as we mentioned before, and as Derek mentioned, you want to improve that experience for the customer, be it with voice, be it with web chat, be it with SMS, be it with a mobile application, all of it, all multi-channel communication. We also see mortgage loan processing. I may be wrong, but in my experience working with banks, the biggest driver for profitability and revenue at a bank is mortgage loan processing and having the ability to really streamline that process. Because I think, as we all know, if you don't do a good job of that, the client, the customer, the potential customer is just going to go to the next bank, right? So if you want to automate your loan processing application, don't worry so much about the technology, because sometimes all of the technologies may be in play, and sometimes only one or two of the technologies may be in play, depending upon the goals that you have and the phases that you want to implement of the technology. So that's more front office, where again, it's automating the contact center or the call center, automating the mortgage process all the way from actually the application piece all the way to the back end to post-close. And then also in new account opening, as we mentioned before, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the customer wants to open up a checking account or a savings account and there's no agent available, you can then utilize conversational AI on a multi-channel basis to help you do that. And then there's the usual back office type use cases that we've seen for years and years, and that is accounts payable, accounts receivable. But lately we're beginning to see new use cases where organizations want to automate IT support. So it's more internal as opposed to external, or automate more HR support, questions that could be answered using this technology about PTO or about benefits, etc. So now you have this plethora that's being deployed for HR support and IT support. But again, I think what we've learned is that when we work with clients and we do a little discovery up front in terms of what their goals are, it's let's look at the goal, let's look at what you want to automate, and then we will work with you to help determine what is the right fit and what's the best technology that has to be used to automate the process. So it's use case first, technology second. That's my experience, Jessica.
Great, thanks. Derek, any thoughts there?
I couldn't have said it better.
Great. I do have a question that came through. It was, how easily does RPA and conversational AI integrate?
I don't know, I can throw it to you, Derek, first, and then I can add value, hopefully, but
Sure.
yeah.
All of the major platforms on the market around RPA have a legacy of being really focused on desktop automation. So how do we simulate mouse movements and mouse clicks and keyboard strokes? So it's very tied to a desktop experience. And as a result, there really traditionally have not been a great set of APIs for interacting between RPA technologies and external clients through REST or SOAP. But that's changed a bit as the vendors have built in more modern APIs into their applications to let you trigger some of those processes. Another attribute of conversational AI and RPA is RPA doesn't always happen in real time. Some processes might take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a few days. And from a conversational perspective, we need to be able to handle that synchronous conversations, that real-time interaction, but also be able to handle it of how do we get back to that back into the conversation or back to that dialogue with the user, even if the output from the RPA client is happening or RPA system is happening, a long time after the conversation started.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So that really concludes our discussion. So we want to move on to wrapping this up with our Automating Now 10-step action plan. And I think, Gary, you wanted to walk through some of these steps.
Sure. Thank you, Jessica. And I think here this is something that everybody's going to know. But in a lot of cases, working with clients, they don't have a plan. So we strongly suggest that deploying this technology, be it from OCR to conversational AI, that you do have a multi-year roadmap. You have a little vision of where you want to be in the next few years. And then you establish a center of excellence. With that, having executive management supporting the individuals who are part of the center of excellence. Definitely collaborate with IT on technologies. There is, lately in the last 5 years or so, everyone knows the movement to the cloud. And in a lot of cases, sometimes the IT department is not necessarily as involved as they used to be. However, you need to get the IT group involved right from day one to ensure seamless communication between an on-premises solution and the cloud. Choose a provider with experience to partner with. And that is a partner who's willing to work with you to talk to you about building that roadmap, helping you, if you need it, center up a center of excellence. So picking the right partner, be it a RPA partner, or be it an OCR partner, or a conversational AI partner, is do your due diligence, obviously, and talk to three companies and pick your right partner. Integrations, Derek touched on that a little bit with the APIs. Ensure that you have an end-to-end process. And number 6, which I actually think is the most important, and this based on working with clients for many years, is start with a pilot, start small, get some success early, show your organization that these automation technologies, based on your use case, you can get some success early. An agile type methodology typically works better than a waterfall methodology. Get some success, get people to buy in, and train employees and train them, etc. And back to what Derek touched about before, customer satisfaction. It's all about, I think in the beginning, more of the front end, then the back office, but it depends on your organization where you're more comfortable. And then measure, analyze, refine, make it better, analyze it. There's a lot of analytical tools out there today that will help you decide and help you optimize the implementation. And then build out more bots, voice, multi-channel bots. So I think that's, if anything we've learned that we would want to share is a 10-point step. And there's nothing here that you don't know, but I think what we've seen in our history working with clients is that clients don't put this on paper, and it only leads to implementations not necessarily being as successful as it should be. So work with a partner who's going to help you with these 10 steps, step by step. And I think that's, if anything, advice we'd like to share on what we have found to work.
Excellent. Looks
I'm looking
great.
at the clock.
Yeah. I know we're at the bottom of the hour. Time flies. But we wanted to quickly go over some next steps if you're interested in going further with this.
Yeah, and I would wholeheartedly agree with what Gary just laid out there. If you are already using chatbots, or if you want to create an action plan around implementing intelligent process automation and conversational AI, Cognigy and Roth Automation offer a discovery workshop, an assessment that will at least get you started on that process to identify use cases that are ripe for conversational automation and help you get a plan to get started with your first chatbots or voice bots. For those of you who are more hands-on and want to kind of get into the Cognigy platform to learn what it all is capable of, you can sign up for a free trial at cognigy.com and take advantage of our many training resources and documentation that help you start building chatbots and voice bots using our low-code or no-code platform.
Great.
Fantastic, good.
So
And
just closing remarks, if I can make some closing remarks,
yeah.
Jessica and Derek. We are the professional services firm. We are the solutions provider. Obviously, Cognigy is the software provider. So again, what we do is we work with organizations to put those pieces together. We will help you along the way. We'll go as fast or as slow as you need to go to implement these technologies. And I think, as we mentioned before, you may only need one subcategory of the technology. You may need more. It really depends on your particular use case.
All right, fantastic. I want to give you guys a huge thank you for joining us today. Derek, Gary, thanks for presenting. Great conversation. We're going to get this recording out to everybody so you can share it and listen to it again if you'd like. And we hope to see you guys again next time. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. Appreciate it.